Castor here.
I've been working with Castor again, and we're going to move on from a lot of petting to more brushing and then trying to work on some fly spray with him. So I am going to review the petting with him and go over that because he still is not comfortable with certain places, like on his belly, his hindquarters, his legs, places like that we still need to work on. But I want to start by just kind of hanging out with his neck and working on petting there, and we're just gonna try to get through his mane a little bit. It's all kind of mashed together and like in a big wind knot. So I'm just trying to get some of those loose hairs out. And it works well to have him do something that's somewhat familiar to where he understands that, I pet his neck and he's okay with it. But then we're adding a little bit of difference there because I am messing with his mane and there might be a bit of pressure there and definitely movement while I like touch his hair and stuff and he can kind of see that coming up. But it's just a good place to start and we have to get that hair figured out, and I'd like to get through it with my fingers before I actually take the brush out, just because that can be a lot more scarier for the horses. Like, oh, it makes a sound, and it feels different. So I just want to make sure he's good with this first. So we're just gonna kind of, and I'm not pulling chunks of his hair out. It's in a wind knot, so it's already out, and I'm just getting all that loose hair untangled basically. So here we're gonna move on a little bit further back. He did excellent with that. That looks wonderful. I really like that. He just pretty much took right to it. He's letting me move on and past his neck, down his leg, on his back, and is really taking it in stride, which is really nice because we do forget with the wild horses or the feral horses that our presence and our touch is not rewarding to them at first. They have to learn to like that and enjoy that and trust you to do that. So all of these steps have to be built up. It's not just like a lot of domestic horses. They like to be petted. They enjoy human contact for the most part. So it's just another thing that we have to train, and we can't forget that it's important to do that. And he's still working nicely for hay. I'm just kind of starting back at his neck and then just kind of branching out a little bit, and then I'll do a couple strokes. I'll click and go ahead and feed him. And I think he lined up there kind of on his own. I don't think we had to do any side passing. I just kind of had him follow my hand target, and he lined right up, and he's fairly parallel. Like, this is pretty good. So, and then I'm just kind of putting my hand through the bars of the gate here. Just got to be really careful. You don't want your arm getting twisted, you just don't want it getting stuck in there. I try not to reach down too far. Like, if I'm gonna work down further, I'll just move my hand down to a lower bar and just make sure that I try to do it as safely as possible. So, because I know there's protected contact here and there is something between us, but I'm gonna have to touch him. So I just wanted to be smart about it and make sure that we're as safe as we can. And he has had the whip on his legs already, so we already did that. So he moved away a little bit. That's fine. That gives me good information. Maybe he didn't really like the touching. Maybe he's not super comfortable. But he did come right back to my hand target and he just targeted his neck and that looked beautiful. Then we went right back to the leg and he looked really good. He might have had a little bit of a lean. I don't know if that was necessarily him not wanting to participate or he was just kind of seeing where I was. But these are all just information that we gotta pay attention to instead of getting frustrated about. We're like, okay, well, what is he feeling? So, and then we'll just go back to the neck here and try to get some of that hair out. Oh, geez, both of their manes were like all full of wind knots and stuff, and that makes me crazy. So, getting some of that out of there. And he's doing fantastic. So, just kind of stroke through it a little bit and then click him while my hands kind of tangled up in his mane and go ahead and feed him. This looks awesome. And again, we've already touched him with the whips, so he already has an idea. I definitely don't recommend, especially with a wild horse, just going and doing this without doing the whips first because you don't know how they're going to react. I mean, I built this up, but each new area I'm going to is new. So just because he's okay with me touching him on his neck does not mean he's okay with me touching on his hip. Especially when you get to the legs, hindquarters, underneath the belly, all those are pretty sensitive areas. So definitely make sure you do all this with the whips first. You can use other objects as well, like a pool noodle or something, Just make sure you do that first and then build it up so that the horse is confident the entire time. But he's looking fantastic right here. I just try to minimize my touching to just a couple strokes and make sure I click and reward while my hand is on him. So like here, I'm stroking him. Very nice. Click while my hand is on him, and then I'll take it off and go ahead and feed him. And I'm doing a little bit more strokes. If your horse is more sensitive or they're not taking to it as much, they're a little bit more fearful, then I would just go ahead and do one stroke or just touching with your hand and do that. Castor is pretty good with all the stroking and it's giving him a minute to chew and process, so he's not worried about this. So the amount of strokes I have here are good for him, but you might have to just do one or just a touch in the beginning with a more sensitive horse. So you always got to adjust the training to the different type of horse that you have. Um, I try to accomplish the same things, but we're going to do it in slightly different ways. That looks great. He is a little tense here. You can tell his tail gets clamped down and he is tight and he stops kind of like leaning. He is still chewing though, so we have that. See, he's leaned here. He's like, I'm not super sure. So there, I noticed that and I didn't go to try and touch him on his tail. I just rewarded and then came back up. But this is a nice approach and retreat method as well because I am giving him those treats and then leaving, letting him take a breather so like that I'm not right next to his hip all the time. Give him a little mental break where he gets a treat reward, and then I come back. So I'm giving him that little mental break and working on me approaching and retreating. So it's just a nice win-win for both of us there. But you can still like see how his tail is kind of swishing here, and then when I bring it back, he might, yep, there it goes, clamps right down. So that's important. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to kick, but that means that there is tension there. And some horses, it might just always be there. They might just not want your hand there, and that's fine, but it is something to pay attention to, especially when he was swishing it right before, and then he clamps it down right when I go back there. So something important to watch. Very nice. I'm just trying to click while my hand is on his tail. Again, you can see that that tail popped up as soon as I left. So we're just going to work on me just standing back here. Very nice. So I don't want to build up the duration too much because it's a pretty new thing for him. So I just go back there, stand for a second or two, and then click. So stand, click, and then walk up there and feed. So I noticed the tail and I want to break it down a little bit because I don't want to have him worried about my presence there and having to worry about me touching him on the hindquarters. So we'll just break it down to just one. So I'm going to go to his hindquarters and build up the duration of me standing there. So maybe the presence gets a little bit desensitized and a little bit more positive, and then I can add the touch back in. So I've brought a soft brush and I want him to just target it first. I want him to know that I have it. I don't want to just put it on my hand and start brushing away. I don't want to do that because he doesn't understand what that means. This is just a scary new object. He hasn't learned to like it yet. So in the beginning with these wild horses, I have to be really, really careful and make sure that they know what objects I'm going to use and that they're experienced in that. And then after the first few sessions where they know what brushes are and different things like that, it doesn't matter anymore. Then I can pick up different ones and I can brush them and do whatever. It's just this beginning phase. So same thing that I did when I started petting is I held it up, I let him come to the brush, and then I did one stroke, clicked while I was stroking, and then took it off, and we'll try again. So again, hand up, I'll let him come, do a stroke, click as I did that, and then feed. That was the process I did for the touching with my hands, with the whips, and then moving on to petting and now brushing. It's all the same, and I'm going to do it with every single brush. I start off with this nice soft brush. Most horses are going to like this. It's not, too invasive like a hard brush or a curry comb, and then we'll move on to those brushes as we go. But this is one I like to use first, and then I'll go ahead and use a curry comb or like a stiffer brush. I don't like to use super stiff brushes anyway because I feel like that's more for humans than for horses. Like they don't need every speck of dirt off of them. And then seems like it's really uncomfortable. So, but he is doing fantastic here. and make sure that we do both sides. So I'm going to do this exact same process on his right side. So just have it up there. See his little slight lean toward it with his neck. So I don't want to just put it on him in the beginning. I want him to come to it. He feels comfortable with coming and targeting it, and then that's my cue basically that I can go ahead and brush. So I want him to have some choice in it. And then over time, yes, I'm just going to brush him like I do a normal horse. But in the beginning, it really shows me that he's okay. He's okay with the process. So I had to go get more hay. We're just going to work on the brush a little bit more. So I'm going to hold it out. There's that lean. Perfect. Click as I'm doing that and then feed. That is wonderful. So I really like that he's got that choice. And I kind of had a little not necessarily an issue, but just something to look out for. So I did teach him to do that neck shoulder target, but then he did end up getting what you see further on really close to the gate and he wants to lean with his shoulders. So just be aware that he only needs to do that when you ask and not just in general. So that was something that happened with both of the Mustangs as I was teaching them. So that's just a little important note to remember. So there I just kind of stroked on his mane there without really having to do that target first because he seems pretty relaxed. He's not nervous, he's not moving around. His neck really hasn't moved at all. So now that he seems pretty good with that, we'll just move on to just me going ahead and stroking him with the brush. I'll click as I do that. And right now, I'm just letting him continually chew. He's eating the hay, so I'm not worried about him choking. And I want this whole experience to be really, really positive. Later on, he is going to be standing still and not eating constantly. We are going to wean him off of that, but for right now, that's where he's going to be at. And I'll kind of show you guys through that process there of him. Like, what I like to do is feed him the treat, wait till he completely eats the treat, and then we'll ask to do another behavior. We'll do something else, and then reward, and then wait, and then do it again. And that gives him just a nice mental process to where he can relax from there so he's not constantly in seeking mode. That's a big part of it. But the other thing is that he doesn't have to have food in his mouth to like stay. Right now he kind of does. So walk over and see what my dog is trying to chase. Um, but this is a nice opportunity for me to approach him. He stayed over here. He didn't really move. That was really, really good. I want to kind of work on as many things as possible without worrying him or causing too much frustration, just like in little ways. Like I walked away and came back, so he got used to me approaching, and we worked on targeting with the brush, and we worked on stroking, and I worked on me being behind him. So we're basically working just on brushing at this point, but there's lots of little things that are going on to do that one behavior. So nice stroking. The top line is where I'd like to start. They're a little bit less sensitive up there usually. We can, and then obviously safer. I'm away from the legs, so I can usually start doing that pretty well. And they are really dirty and gross, so at this point I feel like the brushing is probably a fairly positive thing for them. Um, as they get used to it, as there's no fear, they will. So we just want to set it up to where they'll like it. So I don't want to brush them all the time constantly. I don't really care about them being clean, but since it is like I think it was summer, springtime when this was filmed, so they've got some bugs. They're probably itchy. They're shedding out, things like that. That helps the brushing process for sure. So I want to be careful if I did this exercise like during the winter when they start getting that winter coat that you don't get staticky and shock them because that could really set you back. When I use like some Shoshin or if you have like a water bottle and kind of spray their coat or your brush and make sure that that doesn't happen. Really with anything you want to do that. Definitely when brushing, tacking up, putting blankets on and off, all of those times just to make sure you don't freak them out, especially in these beginning stages where you're building trust. You really don't want anything to set it back. So I'm probably gonna fast forward a little bit through this brushing because I'm kind of in the same place. But it's just nice, simple steps, just getting a little bit further each time, rewarding each time, and making sure he's nice and relaxed. And ask him for the other side. So I want him to just target my hand and not get to offering me just that side pass, which he gets a little bit into here where he wants to just show you one side or the other, and there's a little bit of anxiety there. So I'm just trying to get him to follow my hand and not worry about offering me these other behaviors. And it's not a big deal. It's just he's used to showing me those certain behaviors, and I want to make sure that he can do other ones when I ask. It's not always a different one. That's better. He's still got some side pass in there, which is fine. He's trying to do what he thinks is right, and that's all right. I'm just going to try and ask him to just target my hand and not be offering the sides here. So try and get him to straighten out. So he's confused because he doesn't understand if he's trying to supposed to be doing like a neck target, which side he's supposed to be on. There. So as soon as he got straight facing me, I'm gonna click and reward and then just try to again, he's confused and try to get him to just do a nice nose target while he's straight, and he already knows how to yield his hindquarters, so again, reward while he's fairly straight. It's not gonna be perfect. There we go. And so now he's kind of got the straightness part. We've got him thinking a little bit. He's got a little bit to chew on. Then I can go ahead and bring up my hand target and work on that. So then we added in the brush. He was really good with the brush. So I just want to be able to have him face me and go ahead and brush him and go ahead and do the brushing from a different angle and not always be stuck on him being parallel to the fence because he's like, this is the right answer. I know it. He's going to show it to me, which is fine. He is learning, and you can then see what he thinks are most rewarding or what he thinks you're asking for if you're not being super clear either. So always good information. So let me brush by his ears, and he's looking pretty relaxed with the face brushing. Some horses don't like it. Castor always has, but I would always, in the beginning, make sure and treat your horse like they don't like it, and go through all the steps just to make sure that you're not gonna do something that they don't like or that they're not ready for. It just could be a sensitive area, so just make sure that they're okay with it first. Same thing we're gonna do on the other side, just a little stroke and a reward and work my way up kind of toward their ears. I'm not going to be brushing his ears and doing a big deep clean as soon as I get my hands on them. I know that can be tempting because they are wild and you want to brush their mane and cut their tail and do all these beauty things, but it's just not good for the horse because now they feel like as soon as you touch them, you're doing all these things, and that could be a negative association. We want everything to be nice and positive, and they want these interactions to be good and want something that they want to come back and do. So if their first one was like they made me hold still and did all these things, it's good for us. We think it's nice for them, but we got to pay attention to what is actually nice for the horse. So definitely in the beginnings, I'm trying to break it down and make tiny little steps because I don't want to make this too much work. I want it to be super positive and good for him. So now we can go ahead and ask him to come over on this other side. I'm trying to cue him and he's stuck here on his left side, so we'll try to, there we go, cue his right side. Very, very nice. He's really gotten that quite well. That's one of his favorite behaviors. It still is. When in default, or when in doubt, he will side pass towards you. But what also helped is with this protective contact, he doesn't side pass into you. He'll stop because he's like Castor will stop. He knows that he's not supposed to get all the way up to you, so that does help. That is a nice little thing that I feel like just the protective contact did. So it seemed like it worked out well for both him and Atlas. It might be a little bit more confusing for them if you use a target because they feel like they need to touch something, and that might end up being your body. So just make sure that you make it really clear when you teach it. So same thing, we're going to go through some stroking here, and it's probably a little bit better angle than the other side, but I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up a little bit because it's the same exact thing that we did and that I already talked to on his left side. I'm just going to go ahead and ask him back over, and he did perfectly.
Over.
Very nice.
Over.
He even did the hips over, which I'm actually surprised watching this back that he would do that. I think he would just stay a little bit less parallel, but that's actually really nice. Like if I was starting this over, I wouldn't have asked for that much. I would have just left him when he stepped over. But I guess I was trying to go ahead and pet him back there, so that was probably why. I'm also going to pay attention to the gap that he's giving me here. So if he's really keeping his hindquarters away from the fence, he just might not be comfortable with my presence there or with touching there. But it's really important that I pay attention to that. And then when he does get closer, I'm going to reward that. So maybe go back a couple steps and do just me stand back there and like this. So I'm just going to stand for a second, click, and come up and reward. Work on that a little bit more. And then ask for sideways toward me and then maybe not go over there and just reward for being in that position and build it back up. So do that first and do some of the where I'm standing but not touching and then build it back up to standing and touching because it just needs to be broken down a little bit more, but pay attention to the distance there. They're not just being bad, they're trying to tell you something. So all this is information. So same thing with the brush. And I probably went a little bit faster there because he seemed pretty cool with it and he already understood what was going on the other side. So I just kind of went right to brushing. But just breed your horse. He seemed cool with it. He was cool with it and it was fine. So as long as you're reading it right, you should be good. I think there was a bug flying around. But again, I'm going to kind of cruise through this a little bit faster. Same process, just different side. So again, working on that straightness, and he's just wants to offer me that side pass, so I'm just going to keep asking him to yield his hindquarters away. Close. That was close. I want to just break out the fly spray at the end here and try to get some on his face using that hand target, so I'm just going to spray it on my hand and then ask him to target, and then go ahead and give him the treat. This train, he has a little wound from when I picked him up, so I just want to try to get the flies off of that. There we go. Good. I'm just clicking as my hand is on him. Again, ask him to step over. There we go. There, perfect. That's this position that I was looking for. And then another little bit of fly spray. Really nice.